talking to? What are you trying to prove to everyone else? Who is superior? How is your vision clearer than anyone else? Your head's in the sky, in flight, but you will crash and burn. But you will crash it!
Welcome to Agency Land, a podcast about advertising ambition and the lies we tell ourselves to survive both. I'm Jai Smith, and this is your survival guide. Today's guest studied commerce and law, which really surprised me in a good way, then proceeded to do none of it. He did street performing, TV, presenting, stand-up comedy, film directing, and at some point you literally ran away with a circus, which I need to ask you more. You had a great agency resume starting in the 90s with MJDWT, JPY&R, and you were also one of the you were closely involved in the creation of Are You OK Day, which is a day I'm really advocate for. And then you founded Step Change in 2008, right in the middle of the GFC. You've been running that for 17 years. I think when we met, I had just started Double Star, so I think COVID had just happened as well. You brand yourself as Australia's predatory marketer, which I also need to talk to you about. You've won the TEC Speaker of the Year 3 times. You've won the pitch on ABC's Grew and Transfer. And you created a syndicated cartoon called Eric the Circle, which the book still sits on my desk to this day. And you also owned the patent for a color-changing footwear, which I thought was very, very fascinating. And please welcome to the show, Ashton Bishop. So that is a resume. I thought I'd read out some resumes first, Ashton, but that is crazy. So you finished this commercial law degree, you went into stand-up comedy, street performing, TV presenting, and then literally joined the circus. What were you doing in the circus? I just need to ask this first.
So it was actually a wild story. Me and my mate from high school, Shane, ended up traveling through Europe, and I had a British passport at the time. I could get a visa. Well, I didn't need a visa. I could just work, but Shane couldn't. So we're like, this is great. He'd run out of money. I'd run out of money. I could get a job. He couldn't, but we wanted to stay together. So he appropriated a bucket from the hostel, put his last coins in a sock, and that was his drum kit. And we were in Amsterdam at the time, and we realized pretty quickly that we didn't really have many skills as street performers, but we thought, geez, that sounds fun. And we figured out that even though they could speak perfect English, they couldn't rap. So if you could go groovy, jazzy, funky, pounce, anything that resembled rap, and people went, oh, amazing. So we started rapping, and in a day, I quickly lost my voice. That meant we didn't eat for 2 days. So then we go, get down, here's a breaker. And it was the rap robot where we'd pause until we got paid.
Really?
So that's what we started doing. And then we were on the street. So we took that gig to Copenhagen, which for about 3 months of the year is paradise. And there's a working street called the Star, or however they pronounce it. So we're on the street doing our rap robot day after day. And this woman came along and she went, you're not very good, are you? We went, not so much. She goes, do you want to go to McDonald's? And we're like, yeah, take us anywhere. So talk about stranger danger. So we end up at McDonald's, and then she says, where are you staying? We're or whatever the name of the hostel was. She goes, oh, come stay with me. So we literally stayed on this woman's floor for 3 months and met this street performer called Pony who trained with Marcel Marceau and actually started to give us some skills, not that they're really many skills, but we actually ended up building a show which was the greatest ever Australian stunt show. That meant we actually started making some money and getting some skills. And then the circus came through town, which was Circus Benevice. And Pony got us a job. So Shane and I ran away with the circus. I was literally in the internet cafe to my parents going, I've run away with the circus.
What a great thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And then sort of 3 days in, we figured out that all the crew were Polish, and we didn't know if the Polish would get the hell out of the way. So we're like, these massive tent poles are like crashing down like inches from our feet. And we went, it's probably not worth it. So we ran away
Yeah.
from running away with the circus after about 3 days, but it is a bit of an interlude.
Incredible. Incredible. So after all this, how did you end up back in advertising? Was this a deliberate choice or the classic a bit by accident?
Escapism, man. So running away from out of law, I think only a third of lawyers or people with law degrees ever practice. So I was very much wanting to get into the creative field, street performing into stand-up comedy, and went to London to try and get into the big agencies there, but they wouldn't touch me. So
Yeah.
I actually started in media sales, which is basically telesales, selling media. So there's 100 calls a day, like on the phone.
Wow.
Hello, can I interest you? I'm calling about it was just absolutely brutal. So from there, it doesn't take long for that sort of game to burn out. And I came back to Australia and then got in at the ground floors at Singleton's. So that was the start point.
And was advertising something you'd seen from an escapism point of view because you needed a way out or because you needed a way out of yourself sort of idea? Or was it a creative kind of outlet for you?
It was probably a bit of a creative outlet. It was actually interesting is that I turned up at Singo's on the first day with my law degree in a frame and in a suit going, hey, where's the brainstorming sessions? And they passed me a drill. A screwdriver, and they went, so you're putting beer in the fridge, paper in the photocopiers, and you're putting pictures up on the wall. And I hold the record to date for the shortest time as office administrator at Singleton's. Generally, it was about 6 months to 12 months. That's either because I was brilliant or because they paid $1 million in the year in rent plus a big bond. And I was just going, and like all these pictures.
Oh my God.
So I got great piano hands, but they're not much good at fixing stuff.
And did you end up in client service? Like you're a fairly hardcore
service.
strategist now, but like what was the route? What was
it was
Singo's
client service.
JWT?
Yeah, it was client service. And I found out very quickly in the big agencies that thou shalt not have ideas. So if you're in client service, you're effectively, they call them bag carriers. Your job was to carry the bag from the client to the strategist, and the strategist would give it to the thing. And literally, I found it so frustrating just effectively being a courier and, yeah, thou shalt not think. And we did this piece, Jai, called Stop Working with Wankers. So when we started Step Change, we actually sort of had a crack back at the big agencies around. They put people in such tight boxes of you're a creative and then you're a strategist and your client success and thou shalt not leave thy box. And I just found that really limiting. And because I didn't fit neatly, I wasn't one or t'other. I enjoyed just problem solving and being part of a team.
What would be, because I think that's a really common issue that comes up. I'm in client service or I'm in strategy, so therefore the ideas aren't my role. Or I'm a strategist, so I need to leave the creatives to their own devices. Do you think that's a structural problem that big agencies can change, or is it a cultural one that's just too deep that, you know, we've done it like this for 70 years since the Mad Men days, so why try and change it?
I think it's becoming more of a historical problem now, is that I think the way that we're all working and how AI is like eating into each of those roles, like I think it's evolve or die pretty much. But historically, it went back to the Mad Men days. And I think creatively, like agencies used to make a lot of money by having one TV campaign that So the original REM model on agencies was the creative agency would actually make the ad and then take a percentage of media. So there wasn't a separate media agency. Then the media agency split off and took all the money, and creative agencies were like, oh, well, that used to be fun. Now what do we do? So I think the revenue and the business model attached to that is slow, or not slowly dying away. I think it's quickly dying away. And then media owners are going directly to clients and cutting out that percentage commission. I think, you know, if you look at real estate agents, they're one of the few professions who are still taking a percentage of very large spends. I think that's becoming less and less and less. And I think fixed fees financial planners now, they have to have fixed fee. And I think is once they move to fixed fee, a lot of the dollars and therefore a lot of the talent and a lot of the uniqueness went out of the industry. And I think they're still sort of really scrapping and shaping for models. I mean, you look at big share price of the big groups, they're in trouble.
They definitely are. When you were moving around those different agencies across those 6 years, was that a learning time for you? Were there hard lessons? Were there good lessons? Because you started Step Change not too late after in 2008, correct?
Yeah, so the actual, you mentioned Are You OK Day? The genesis of Step Change was very much the genesis of Are You OK Day, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I started at Singos, and Singos was very much the businessy side of the business. So it was a bit middle finger up to the rest of the industry at the time. They went, we don't enter awards, we're about business outcomes. So it attracted a certain type of client. Ogilvy London was still sort of facing 15, 20 years back, although I did get to work with Rory Sutherland there. And
Wow.
10 o'clock in the morning, Curtis Lesage would be, down at the Cornish and Barrow with a glass of white wine. If you wanted to meet with him, you knew exactly where he'd be. That was very much back in the day. But I did meet Dave Trott there. So Dave Trott, and you talk about that positioning as predatory marketing. So that was appropriated from Dave with his blessing. So out of all the concepts and all the teachers, the best strategist I've ever met was the creative called Dave Trott. And he was just amazing. His clarity of thought and ability to really put pointy thought in play was amazing. So I learned more with the 20 months under Dave than I probably did for the 20 years combined. Wow. I think he was very much also able to deliver life lessons and advertising lessons and bring them together. He's very much a people strategist.
Was that a part of you, like almost like growing up as well? Like I think certainly the way I look back at it, like my first kind of 6 or 7 years in agency land were where I learned some of those kind of life lessons about becoming, I always attribute to Ian Rumsby, who helped me become a better man, not just a better worker or a better agency guy. But what about for you? What were some of those lessons you learned?
So probably a big one that landed with, so Dave spoke in riddles. He's a bit like Yoda. and for the price of a cup of tea, if you learn how to make a great cup of tea and you can make the perfect cup of tea, Dave would just pontificate. And I guess they say, arrogance is insecurity dressed up in a flash leather jacket. I would just talk and fill the space. And once Dave just went, authentic about your authenticities, you must. I'm like, what? He says, Ashton, you're not authentic about your inauthenticities. And I've gone, what does that even mean, Dave? And it was one of those things that I needed to take away and chew on. And he was saying that I was so inauthentic and the way that I was showing up just about in every situation. But I wasn't even honest about my dishonesty, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's at some level, I was, constantly in a state of thinking I was missing out over there and over there and over there. So I wasn't actually present to who I was speaking with, what I was doing or that moment. I was always somewhere else, which left me the experience of showing up as inauthentic. But I wasn't honest about that, right? So I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't aware of that self-awareness of. Do you think that actually was I know when I'm in that mode, I'm also really unhappy. I'm also looking over there because I'm like
that was it.
And I'm a bit like you. Like I don't my happiness baseline is high. Like people, if I'm having a bad day, I'm still having a pretty good day.
Yeah.
Are you the same? Was that kind of
it
a
was
mask
a roller
or a code
coaster,
for you?
Jai, and probably the experience with Dave, and it actually leads to Are You OK Day. But probably through my 20s, I was very much the roller coaster. Like when I was up, I was like, whoa. And when I was down, I would just crash, right? And it was just this, I guess, projection of nervous energy constantly chasing and looking and And I think that environment of the agencies where you could like climb the ladder to the next rung, I went from office administrator to group account director in like record time, right? And I went from white belt to black belt at Taekwondo in record time. And each time I got a rung, it was not enough. It's like the person who wants, if I just had that car and if I could get the car,
Yep.
right? So effectively what I'd done, and I know you're a student of behavioral economics, I was on the hedonistic treadmill of life. Like I was just, if I just got that, if I got the date or the girl or the job raise or the money or the thing or the and it was just exhausting. And I was exhausting myself and exhausting others. And in fact, through my 20s and 30s, I was sick constantly with an immune system that would redlined and redlined out. And I think at my worst, I ended up in hospital with pneumonia twice. And up to 23 courses of antibiotics in a single year, right? Constantly like that. So the difference about meeting Dave is I'm still able, but I don't have the dips anymore. I don't have that, those crushing lows. I don't have that down in the dumps for extended periods of time. And it was actually in the work. And Dave was a landmark guy. I don't know if you've done much about that, but I remember going out with Gav Larkin at lunch for one day. And Gav, this is the foundation of Are You OK Day. So Gav was 6'3", male model, rugby player, MD of an agency that just won, been shortlisted for Emerging Agency of the Year and Agency of the Year, winning 3 out of 4 pitches, like running super high, gorgeous wife, 3 kids, placed down at the beach at Coogee. And he goes, let's go to lunch. I go, Gav, how you going? And he goes, to tell you the truth, Ash, I'm down in the dumps and the black dog's got me. And I'm like, we're at the Grand National Pub. I go, what do you mean the black dog? We're in a horse pub, Gav. There's no dog. And I'm like looking under the I'm completely naive to the fact that, one, the concept of the black dog, but two, it's just so foreign that Gav could have been in that place. And Gav's father had actually committed suicide. And he goes, I'm going that way too. And I was like, what? Right? And massively beyond my, beyond my pay rate. And I said, look, Gav, well, Dave gave me some stuff and I went and did this work and, maybe you'll benefit from that too. And Gav went away and he did Landmark. And then Are You OK Day was actually the genesis of a project that came out of that Landmark work. And he was going to do a movie called Rusty Faith, which is going to be a tribute to his dad. And then it sort of pivoted. And that was the genesis of Are You OK Day. So working alongside Gav through that period was just wild. I got to do the strategic brief for the brand and the launch strategy and support Gav. So from a conversation where he was himself like right at the bottom to go, hang on, I can actually use my skill and make sure that nobody ever has to feel that isolated and that alone ever again. So it was just incredibly powerful. And the other side of that story, and there's an Australian story on it. So Gav got cancer during that period and his son actually had a brain tumor too. And the caretakers that were put in charge of that shop, the brand shop at the time, basically decided that they were going to stage what Gav's on compassionate leave, were basically researching the agency to get foundations to stage a coup. And I found this shit on the printer one day and I went, what? And I just went, you know what? This is the biggest bag of BS. Like you can't opportunistically use when Gav's going through that to use that to try and subvert. So I just resigned to the group CEO, who was actually like really good about it. And I walked back to the strategy office and the other guy there was Coops. And I've gone, and mate, I found some stuff on the printer. I'm out. You can come with me or you can stay. So we started Step Change mid-GFC. No clients, no money, no idea. And it was just a protest vote. So it wasn't thought out at all.
When you think back and, that's just a heartbreaking story about Gavin and kind of how he got to those points. It's amazing people talk about growth and people talk about experience, but I don't think very many people are aware of just what the cost or the sacrifice of that growth or that wisdom is. When you think back on that story, and again, it's not a story that you shared with me prior, is what did you take away from that being a man, being a dad? What do you think about that now today?
Look, yeah, it's pretty pointy, Jai, but
Yeah.
I remember sitting there with Gav, and he made the choice that Are You Okay Day was going to be his legacy. And we always thought he was going to beat the cancer, and he didn't. And I remember sitting there holding his hand, looking out over the beach there. It was our say goodbye. And he goes, the cancer might take my body, but it's not going to win over my mind. Right. And that was such incredible courage and poise and grounding and strength.
Yeah.
And Gav is godfather to my daughter. And I think, within the story of Are You Okay Day is the foundation of that strength and posturing, right? To say, no matter what you face into, it might take the physical aspects. It may take your life, but you still got a choice of whether you let it take your spirit or your soul. And I guess that's been Gav's greatest gift, is not to just say words flippantly, but to stand in a place of challenge where his body's been taken and saying, you know what, you can take my body, but I preserve my soul and my commitment. And I think that was his gift. To Are You Okay Day, and every time I see the yellow and every time I see Are You Okay Day, I see that strength of Gav. And Gav, as a person, wasn't perfect. He was, had his own struggles, made his own mistakes. But in those moments of generosity and spirit, just set an example for all of us around what's possible. And I that's what I take away. And, no matter what I'm facing into, it is a gift to have Gav model that, right? I think it's super powerful.
Yeah, look, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and feelings on that, because it is, I don't think people realize where, what some people cynically see as a corporate day in September versus, like a man's story and a legacy he left behind. I know for me, it's become an important date because nobody, again, just like you, chasing that next hit of dopamine from work, dating, life, toys, money, cars, everything. It becomes addictive, and I think agency culture fuels it. And I think when can be no better than finance bros in that regard. We think we're better because we make less money, but when you look at what real strength is, or what real a display of real legacy or a display of real courage, it comes in such a different form than we think. But no, thank you for that, man. Really appreciate it.
And look, I think there's an interesting thing. I think it's Douglas Brackman wrote a book called Driven, and actually went back and said that sort of mindset, and whether it's a creative mindset or that anyone who doesn't neatly fit the agricultural harvest, right? So there was the hunters and then there was the harvesters, right? So the hunters were out there, and that ability to look beyond, look up, to focus, to drive in, high adrenaline, focus, all of that, versus the people who will get up every morning, go tend the fields, do the crops, right? And there's people who have a D2, D4 dopamine receptor difference. That means they get on the hedonistic treadmill. I think you've got it. I think I've probably got it. And it means our kids probably have it.
Yeah.
But because it is, right, there's a genetic difference, and it's called D2 and D4 dopamine. That means we don't receive dopamine in the same satiating ways as normal population, right? Who are very content to get up, tend the fields, go back home, and that's cool. Whereas the driven are always going, what's the connect? And it's a different mindset. So I think that book, Driven, I've sort of found it super helpful. And I'm part of Entrepreneurs Organization, and probably whereas about maximum 10% of the population have that D2, D4 dopaminergic system variation, about 90% of that population do.
Yeah, wow.
There's something really different going on. But I think that, certainly the creatives, the leaders of agencies, the people who are designing agencies, they're probably driven, right? And what I mean is that, that different evolutionary, they're just wired differently.
Yeah, well, that's on my list for sure. Absolutely. Talking about what drives you, I dug up a piece you wrote in 2013 on Umbrella, where the client CEO like slammed his fist on the table and said, "No, you don't know our fucking business." And you said that single moment changed the way you thought about the agency model. Did it step change? Because you're already 3 years into it by then. What was this occasion? What happened? And what was the lesson you took away?
Yeah, so that was actually, it was at News Limited, and the CEO was, I don't think I probably mentioned it. What the hell? Kim Williams at the time. So Hamish McClellan was our CEO. And he went to Kim, "Oh, we know your business." And Kim's gone, "Bang, you don't know it." Right? It was just wild.
Wow.
And I think in that moment, there was just a little bit of humility, is that certainly a lot of the wisdom around, trying to convince clients that you know their business. And a lot of clients almost want that, right? They want you to know their business. But the truth is we don't, right? We don't work in their business. We can't possibly know the intricacies of their day-to-day, the pressures, the market machinations. And I think that level of humility was just quite freeing, Jai.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that's helped me with is letting go of WARR, like what Ash reckons research. So I'm always very cautious and very skeptical of what I think, what I feel. And, I think what makes me good at my job is the fact that I don't necessarily trust what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to that Ogilvy. Well, the problem with people is they don't say what they don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say, right? And I think that's easier to think about other people, but in that moment where you actually take your glasses off and have a look back at yourself and go, guilty, it's quite freeing. So I think within that humility of just going, you know what, I don't know our clients' businesses. I don't know the pressures and stress that they're under, but I can discharge my responsibility to my agency and to my client without that pressure. I just found it quite freeing.
I think you also open up and I know the slide you're talking about. Like, I still see it today. We know your business, and it's 3 of the most willfully ignorant data point somebody could weasel out. Or now it's the opposite, where somebody hasn't cleaned up their ChatGPT research, or and it's suddenly 2 paragraphs 3 times in one slide, and you've now done the opposite. You've shown me how little you know by putting more down. But rather than asking the question, how can I be valuable to you where in our relationship? Like our relationship, we've got our top 7 clients, then we run a roster of about 20 any other time, but we know our role with them, not our scope with them, but our role with them, or my role with them in particular as the MD, has to change. And I think asking yourself, well, what are we truly adding value to?
Mm.
And I don't mean in some ROI way. I mean, like, who do you need me to be? Like the guy who runs our hedge fund, he just needs me to the guy who pushes back on his ideas and makes sure he thinks harder creatively about it versus, our solar racking company who need us to be the engine, need us to drive outputs, not outcomes for them. And being okay with both and hoping my team understands the brief for both of those things. Because we're not running their businesses. We don't have to. You have been running Step Change for 17 years. That's a long time. Most agency founders either sell, they burn out, they get bored. What's kept you in this? Or does it come down to that driven piece?
It was actually within there, we've been life staged and cycled a few times. I mean, part of the journey coming up to, and we didn't know it was GFC, but we got to a point where we're about, 50 people, $5.5 million turnover, big costs. So 450 cost per month, 50 people in Sydney down at Piermont, right? Significant pressure. How, you still got some hair. I lost mine in the fray because when it was project, Jai, it was just and I knew every year we would lose money across December, January, February, and then we'd have to work double to pick it up. And even when we're not, because we get on a big job and then we wouldn't do new business and we'd come off and then we're right? It was just became exhausting. And I guess, I got to a point where, we had good partner agencies. We're partnered with you, you got excellent creative chops. We're good at other things. And, primarily our special sauce was that facilitation and good strategic IP facilitation. But we had a digital department, we had creative and all this. So we ended up selling off creative and digital, but I just want the strategy bit, right? I want to simplify. I don't want to be responsible for feeding, because we thought putting in strategy and digital would actually, risk or take the pressure off the project for strategy. But all that happened was the creative and digital ended up being project businesses too. So rather than having retained blocks, and they did have some retained, but it wasn't retained enough. So we ended up just, creating this hamster wheel that I found myself running in. So we sold off creative and digital just before COVID. Basically on an uptick deal on performance. And I took control of the new company Monday, the 23rd of March, 2020.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, right. So in that deal, I'd sort of ended up kicking the can to pick up the strategy pipeline. And I had there's only 3 of us, but it was like an 800K pipeline, which I went for 12 months, 800K, 3 people, happy days. And then I lost 80% of that in half a day.
Wow.
as every large corporate, because I had gigs with Sony and ANZ and, Mercer, all of these big corporates just went, all right. And sitting there and our core offering was speaking, facilitation, face-to-face. And we were meant to be on a plane to Perth to go to a job for Horizon. And, that was that week. So we ended up buying a meeting owl and trying to figure out how to facilitate remotely. But, within that space, we had a couple of clients step up and one said, "Oh, you're probably stuffed, aren't you?" And that lesson from Dave around humility came in. And instead of the big man routine going, no, we're fine, I'm like, yeah, it's completely stuffed.
Yeah.
And she's gone, well, if I gave you this, could you do it? Yeah. I'm like, yes. So we ended up building out a learning management system for them. And simultaneously, another client from Toowoomba went, "You want to be our marketing department?" And that was actually the genesis of the new model. So we had to pivot because the market for what we were actually doing didn't exist. Like conferences, events, face-to-face facilitation just disappeared. So we had to learn a different way of delivering value to market.
What's the lesson there for other people who, again, I don't want to date these too much, but we are on the precipice, in a lot of ways over the precipice, especially in the strategy game of, the large language models can just do what used to take us ages to do. Perplexity just launched their compute model, which has just kind of, again, revolutionized a lot of different workflow and processes. If you have to think about what the lesson from COVID was for you, and now probably some other lessons that you, me, and a bunch of other agencies are going to have to learn, what is it? What should we be thinking about? Humility as a principle, I definitely think is one. But what's the lesson, or what's the driving mantra? Do you think we might be, or should be, taking into the next couple of years? Really,
Look, I think the stress of trying to solve everything, Jai, I think it can be debilitating. You go, shit, I'm behind. I'm like, oh my God, I've just gone on a Claude co-work and now you're under complexity compute. I'm behind, right? So
yeah.
You're always going to be behind in some ways, but it's that story of, the two guys laying there in the jungle, having a little suntan, rustling the bushes. One starts pulling on his running shoes and you go, shit, if it's a lion, you're not going to outrun the lion. You go, I don't need to outrun the lion, I need to outrun you.
Yeah.
And I think, we need to be ahead of our clients. And that's the test, is we need to be ahead of our clients. Because if we're ahead, we can bring value back to them. And it's just never taking eyes off that value equation. It's value, value, value. And I think, the funnel's deep, right? i.e. from, if people don't know about you, they can't buy from you. If they don't consider you, or you don't come to mind at the right time, you don't have hat in the ring. If they appraise you and find you wanting, you won't get there. If you don't represent value and frame value, you won't close it. If you don't build that relationship, you won't have good word of mouth and repeat. Right? There is so much to do down there. And, most clients need help, right? And I think it's just that humility of going, where can I be useful? And where do I yield on that?
Yeah.
And, still a lot of the, I think ChatGPT is actually getting dumber. Like, I don't know how.
Yeah. No.
Maybe stupid breeds stupid, but maybe the more people that use it to help find cat videos, the dumber it's getting. But it's really just, it's getting further away.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunities around some of those other modules, right? AI can deliver shit at the speed of light, but at some point you've got to know whether it's shit or not, right? And you don't need to dip your finger in and taste it. You should be able to just have a look at it and have a whiff. And if we can make sure that our clients can get the best of the human intelligence and the best of the artificial intelligence and bring those things together, then that's probably the best we can do at the moment, unless we want to take up a trade, right? And I don't know, I've got good piano hands. I don't know whether I'm going to be a good plumber, but I think plumbing businesses, I put a pitch out for a plumbing business last week. So maybe services for plumbing.
I did one as well. And big gig, full rebrand, like franchise model, smart guy. He's my uncle, so I've got to say he's a smart guy. What's been the sacrifice for you? You're very open. You're very forthcoming. But what's been the real sacrifice behind these 20+ years of doing this?
Look, I probably traveled way too much. So that's the difficulty of having a young family. The moment you make platinum on one of the airlines, you haven't won, right? It's actually that's not a win. That's, and I know they frame it as if you're winning. You're not winning. And I think for me, probably I had a management system where, the busier I got, and a part of it was that hamster wheel, Jai, of like running around the hamster wheel. The only way I could do that and stay sane was I gave up my calendar and I went, I can't look ahead, right? It would just be too much, too overwhelming. So I just decided to follow the bouncing ball from going to appointment to appointment to appointment. That meant I had to delegate my calendar. And I guess there's a cost in that. The moment I give over my time and I follow the bouncing ball, there's a cost to that. Now, I set some guardrails where I don't take work home and I don't work weekends, which has been pretty good. And I've been pretty disciplined around that. And that meant that we didn't pitch because pitches happened after hours and they happened on weekends. And I just went, you know what? I don't want to do that. So that was probably the cost, is that by not pitching, not chasing pitching, we gave up access to bigger clients. And by handing over my calendar, I think I probably became servant to my calendar rather than master.
I have never heard 3 or 4 more points that I've related to more deeply in anyone I've spoken to in the last 10 years of podcasting. I went double platinum. I didn't even know you could go double diamond in Cathay. And same thing, I lost relationships, like multiple, lost my first long-term relationship over it, wore it like a badge of honor, got used to the treatment, fell for all the marketing bullshit. And it's just a lie. And the time that cost you with friends, family, and I was just physically, I was just either, half drunk or getting over, my hangover from the plane, because I was just drinking it to deal with it.
That's him.
Second piece was, I also have some hard and fast rules. First one is, I never work after I get home. If I do, it's something pretty specific, a bit of writing, a bit of creative. And same thing, I can't remember the last time I worked on a weekend. And finally, same thing, we don't pitch. We just don't do it. I'll do a great creds deck for you. I've got some great videos from people telling you we're great. But I'm like, if you want me to dance like a monkey, there better be some coin in it first. Because probably like you, I come from that speaking background. I come from that, like, if you want me to speak for you, there's 6 hours of prep in it and probably, 6 years of knowledge you've got to work up again. It's not about the hour keynote. But I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's not for everyone, but I think there are some really good guardrails to keep you sane, running a business, being in agency land, and accepting that whether it's your calendar you've got to give up, whether it's that tiny bit of control, it might make you a lot happier, even if it seems like it's counterintuitive. Ashton, one more question. You don't seem like a man who regrets anything. Is that fair to say?
Actually, there's a book by Dan Pink on regret.
Yeah, I know the one.
I actually found it pretty useful. It starts with adages about people who write no regrets spelt wrong. But I think regrets are probably pretty useful emotion in a few fronts. For a lot of the regrets I have, I don't actually have a good answer, right? So, and it's interesting is I look back and I go, because one of the things, and so when I did the work with Gav on Are You OK Day, I decided that, Gav was going mass. I wanted to work with leaders. And I took all the stuff that we did together into Powerful Presence, which was the sort of a bit of a framework that was my self-therapy around distilling all the lessons from Gav and Dave. And because I found myself once again sitting on a plane one day, Jai, I remember I said I'd smoothed the roller coaster where it didn't get such dips. And I found myself, I'd dipped below my new low line. And I just sat there and I've gone, how is this possible after all the workshops and reading and self-reflection and everything I've done? How did I find myself below the line? And I actually sat down and I went, I've got to put strong foundations in. So I actually blocked up the foundation stones that I needed to really make sure it wasn't luck that I didn't dip down. But part of that is remember I said I'm a black belt. Previously, I sort of had a black belt of beating myself up.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a master at it's inflicting self-pain of going back, why are you so freaking stupid? And you've done it
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
that lesson is that life will keep teaching the same lesson again and again until you learn it. And part of the time, I've got, and we look at our emotional palettes, most of our emotional flavors are negative, right? And that's a 250,000 evolutionary cycles is that, if we found out where the good berries were, it was really useful to remember where that was. If we fell off a cliff and happened to survive, it's absolutely essential we don't do that again, right? So negatives are always wired up to 10 times stronger than a positive. And when we look back at our lives, it's very easy to just see those potholes and those dips and those mistakes. And certainly what I found was that I'd find myself lambasting a previous self, right? Of mistakes that I made as a child, right? At school when I decided to fight Matthew Bester and get my tooth punched out in front of the whole school, right? Where I got chased out onto the road and hit by the car because I was being stupid and whatever that is, right? But I just look back at all of those mistakes. And as an adult, right, I'm 50 now, I look back and I go, if I had have known better, I would have done better. I just didn't know. And I think that's probably the answer to regret, is that the regret file is deep and long. And especially, when people have let me down, right? And that's, if you want to go fast, go alone. And I like going fast, right? I love going fast, right? I'm really happy to go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And hence the difficulty is that then that's actually trusting people to do the right thing, not when it's easy, when you're meeting them, when it's hard. And I've consistently found when it's hard, there is very few people who will do the right thing, right? There's a few, but most of the people who I've joined with in the good times, my spidey sense went, I don't know, but they need the benefit of the doubt, have actually ended up costing me financially, emotionally. And the choice then is, do I stop trusting? Do I stop giving people the benefit of the doubt? And maybe the answer has been somewhere in between, right? Is that I need to listen to that voice of suspicion, but I can't let that isolate me completely, right? So it's looking for that asymmetry of risk now, where the upside and benefit of partnering with people is managed by the downside of knowing it's quite possibly that they will let me down, not out of a loathing or desire to hurt me, just out of self-interest. That when it comes down to it, it's a pretty special person who can actually subvert their short-term needs, wants, and desires to do the right thing by a relationship long-term. It's pretty rare.
I couldn't agree more. And that is literally the lesson that I've been staring out of. I love to go fast. I love it. And I think people set it up as a binary question, but you can do both. And I think, like you, I trust myself probably too much sometimes. I really resonate with what you're saying about I question what I think. I probably don't listen to what I feel enough. I'm really good at shoving that away. But that balance of, yes, people will let me down, but it's about me having, being grown up enough to deal with that after. I know my risk profile now. I know how I'll move back from it. And I think you've got to be ruthless about seeing the next opportunity, even if everyone in the room lets you down.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what, that loneliness of leadership, that's where it comes down to. And I think good leaders get back up every time knowing that that's how other people grow around you. So actually, I couldn't agree more. I've felt much more connected to you, but also probably to myself, knowing that I'm not going crazy. So look, mate, Thank you so much. I know you stepped straight out of a chiropractor appointment to do this, so I'm so grateful, mate. I'm really grateful. I'm really glad we had this conversation.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Agency Land, a Survivors podcast, is hosted and produced by me, Jai Smith, founder and head of creative and strategy at Double Star Co. Our intro track, Crash and Burn, featuring North Lanes by Phase One, used with the kindest of permissions from Fat Cat Music. Special thanks to Carla Munn and Jaron Norton for the art, design, and motion. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, leave us a review, and share it with somebody navigating agency life. Until then, you're good, get better, and stop asking for things.